Have you ever heard the phrase, "Not my circus, not my monkeys"? Well, that doesn't apply to today's video because this is most definitely my circus and my monkeys. Call up Ringling Brothers so we can take this show on the road. I should probably explain what's going on first. Hi. It's Kayla, by the way. So here's the tea. There's been an ongoing debate among BL fans regarding side couples and screen time distribution in shows. The two most recent shows that have been swept up in this discourse are The Next Prince and Pit Babe Season 2. As an active participant in both fandoms, I've seen the criticisms, and I have my own. So let me do what I do best. Use my useless observations for good. Let's break down this discourse and figure out how we can address the underlying issues causing it. Quick disclaimer before we begin, I do not tolerate generalizations of any fandom or group of people, so if you're thinking about doing that, think again. Now let's proceed with the video. The secondary couple is a BL staple that's existed long before the genre itself. Take a look at any piece of media from any country. You'll see a plethora of shows and movies that feature multiple romantic plotlines being told at once. The secondary couple often provides a good contrast to the main couple. Their inclusion adds a certain depth to the world in which they exist. When it comes to BL, secondary couples are fairly commonplace. In fact, many shows have not just one side couple, but multiple. It's something that's expected, but it's not required. Reset, for example, was a recent series that focused solely on telling the story of one couple. The term second couple syndrome has grown popular in the BL genre, with many viewers latching onto the couple that has less screen time. Some people are drawn in by the simplicity of the second couple. Some people like the fact that it leaves room for imagination. Up until lately, I've never seen legitimate vitriol towards the existence of the BL side couple. There's been a definite shift in public opinion, and I think it's due to the increased competition between BL pairings. It's not enough for your favorite actors to star in their own series anymore. The series has to center around them and them alone, or the fans will go batshit crazy. This brings us to the controversy surrounding The Next Prince. Across the board, fans were dissatisfied with the screen time distribution between couples. Xinunu fans were mad, Jimmy Ohm fans were mad, NetJJ fans were mad, and even the people who were rooting for Ava and Mira were mad. I'm sure you can imagine the blizzard of infighting this caused between fandoms. You guys. It was hell. There was a subset of Xinunu fans who were arguing that Jimmy and Ohm had too much screen time and it was making the series feel congested. There was a subset of Jimmy Ohm fans who were arguing that they should have more screen time because their storyline was more engaging. And I think pretty much everyone was in agreement that Net and JJ were totally neglected by the narrative. Now this is where my fandom knowledge comes in, because you might be wondering why the fans of these pairings all feel so strongly about screen time. Let me take you back to 2022, circa Cutie Pie era. Fans were not happy with the screen time distribution in that series either. The MaxNet fans and the Tudorium fans both felt like their pairings weren't given the spotlight they deserved. As you can see, the side couple discourse was in its early stages of development. Personally speaking, I think the criticism had less to do with the series itself and more to do with the fans believing that Domundie CEO P. Afshin has favoritism. In a previous video, I've mentioned the fact that every single fandom under Domundie believes that their pairing is the one being neglected. But anyway, that's why Z and Nunu's screen time in The Next Prince is such a sensitive topic for Zonzons. It boils down to the fans feeling like their favorite pairings aren't being properly promoted by the company due to the alleged favoritism. I know I'm a devout Zonzon, so this might be considered a cardinal sin, but I have to defend the Jimmy Ohm fans for a minute here. The majority of fans simply wanted the series to treat Ramil and Peitai's BDSM dynamic with the utmost care, and in order to do that, you have to have the screen time to really delve into the complexities of a relationship like that. This aspect of their relationship is also woven into their characterization, who they are, why they do things, etc. For Ramil, it also relates back to his relationship with his abusive father. These are details that are important to grant time to, so the story will feel complete, and so we can make sure these elements are being accurately depicted. Out of 14 episodes, Ramil and Peitai scenes were like a drop in the bucket. I felt like I barely saw them. So I don't know what reality we're living in where we think they were taking up up all this screen time. I guarantee you, the pacing issues in this series were not caused by Jimmy and Ohm. What do I even say about Net and JJ? Some people believe they were cast in this series as a way to promote their upcoming series, Love Upon a Time. I kind of believe this because what was the point of including their characters if they weren't going to do anything with them? Their storyline was poorly written, and that can be seen, or not seen, by their non-existent screen time. If any fandom should be complaining about a lack of screen time, it's theirs. Feuding over screen time is not just a Demundi thing. I've noticed this happening across many companies, including the company who brought us Pit Babe. So let me tell you about my Roman Empire and how it's fallen. Season 2 of Pit Babe recently ended, and fans were not happy with, you guessed it, the screen time distribution between pairings. Now this series has a ridiculous amount of couples. You have the main couple, Babe and Charlie, then there's the side couples, Jeff and Alon, North and Sonic, Pete and Chris / Wei, and Kim and Kenta. That's 5 couples, all with their own storylines and relationship dynamics. There was never going to be a fair and just way of splitting screen time between that many couples. Forget the relationship aspect. There's no way to develop all those characters and have all their actions make sense. Well, maybe there is, but you would have to have 0 filler, 0 flashbacks, and limit every couple to 1 NC scene, and Pit Babe was definitely not doing any of that. With a roster of 14 significant characters, I can imagine the writer's room was hanging on by a thread. Speaking of writers, here's my thought. I think the original source material plays a huge part in the screen time distribution. The novel calls for a large ensemble cast, and there's no getting around that. I have a bit more leniency when it comes to the screen time distribution in this series because personally, I was fine with it. At the same time, I understand why people weren't. Pavel Poo fans received a lot of hate from the fans of the other pairings because they felt like Charlie and Babe had too many NC scenes, which resulted in less screen time for the other couples. Actually, I do agree with this, but I don't agree with sending hate. There was also an incident during the cast's reaction to the finale that contributed to the fans' outrage over screen time. Basically, Syleb and Pawn were anxiously waiting to see the final cut of this NC scene they spent hours filming, and without notifying anyone, the production team cut it out entirely. Syleb and Pawn were clearly disappointed, and that caused their fans to lash out at Change. They accused the company of, you guessed it, favoritism. What upsets me the most in these types of situations is how fans will direct their anger towards each other instead of the actual issue. The reason we're fighting in the first place is because these shows have serious issues with writing, pacing, and characterization. Your faves feel like they don't have adequate screen time because their screen time isn't being utilized properly. Either that or the characters they're playing were never fleshed out to begin with. If a story has a strong foundation, then everything else will follow suit. The problem is, whatever's happening on paper isn't translating to the screen. So why is that? I think the real problem here is that instead of creating shows with the intention of telling a story, these companies are creating shows with the sole intention of promoting a BL pairing. It doesn't matter if they half-ass the writing because the fans are going to tune in regardless. Yes, they might complain, but they're still streaming. I feel like I've been screaming into the abyss about this topic for years now, but the quality of writing will keep declining as long as we keep letting them play in our faces. Fans are stuck in a tough spot because we want to support our faves, but we also want to advocate for their fair treatment. So do we just consume their content in a critical manner? I suppose so. I was trying to think of a BL series that succeeded at developing multiple couples at once, and the only one that came to my mind is You're My Sky. There were 3 couples in that show, and they all received adequate screen time to explore their relationships. Not only that, but each character could stand alone. Their existence didn't rely on being one half of a couple. Are there any other shows you guys can think of? When I asked my Discord, some of the shows they mentioned were Moonlight Chicken, We Are, Your Sky, and Knock Knock Boys. To conclude on this subject, no, I don't think there's a problem with side couples in BL. The problem is, once again, for the millionth time, lazy writing. And shipping culture is contributing to that problem. As much as I engage in it, I have to be honest. Some fans just take it too far, sending death threats, throwing out slurs. It's crazy. And it's not even productive. You want to make a change? You want to be heard? Then you have to lead with empathy. Thank you to the moon and back for watching. This is a topic I'm dying to hear your thoughts on because it seems like it would be simple, but it's actually quite complicated. So make sure to leave a comment. On a separate note, I've been contemplating which series to react to next on Patreon, and I'm leaning towards Beyond Cloud's new series, Shine. Let me know if you guys would tune in. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!